The Metra BNSF line is the busiest line in the entire Metra system out of all the 11 Metra lines, with more than 65,000 people who ride it daily. The history of the BNSF is important because not only it's the busiest train line in Chicago, it has been an innovative source of growth and development for both the trains and communities. According to the BNSF History and Legacy, the Burlington route began in 1849 when businessmen in Aurora founded the Aurora Branch Railroad. The whole idea of the railroad began back in late 1848 with a meeting of businessmen from Aurora and Batavia. That meeting led to an issue of a state charter for the Aurora Branch Railroad on February 12, 1849. It began making with 12 miles of track. According to the book Images of Aurora by Jim and Wynette Edwards, when the locomotives were being built along the railroad had to hire more employees. They also needed 6 different departments for each job along the railroad.
The growth really exploded when the railroad came through, as did many other towns along the route also.
On September 2nd, 1850, the first train made a run on a newly built line from Aurora to Turner Junction, which is now West Chicago. By 1864, they completed the railroad from Aurora to Chicago, and the following year, the first train traveled into the Chicago Union Stockyards, which is now the Back of the Yards neighborhood. It was the second railroad to serve Chicago. The railroad grew 400 miles of track in the state of Illinois by 1868, and it was called the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, known as CB&Q or Burlington Route. The same year, the Burlington completed the bridge over the Mississippi River to connect to the rest of the country. Riverside was founded in 1869 with the Burlington Railroad pump station, which is the present-day water tower and the Des Plaines River. According to Riverside Then and Now, Riverside was founded by Frederick Law Olmsted and a group of Eastern businessmen who wanted to build a town where people can get away from the city life in Chicago to move out into a suburban country town. They decided to establish this village along the Burlington Railroad and the Des Plaines River.
Without the railroad, there would probably be no Riverside.
It was also a place where vacationers who wanted to get away from Chicago could come stay at Riverside, which was like a resort back in the 1860s. Olmsted's original idea was to create a park-like town with streets that would be curvy except for the Burlington and Quincy streets. Burlington and Quincy streets were the only straight parallel to the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad. The Good Life in Suburbia wrote how Riverside was a change point and terminal service for the Burlington. Riverside was one of the few stops of the suburban express trains besides Downers Grove and Aurora. In 1910, the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy reached 9,300 miles of track. It provided a great service, but occasionally there were problems. When diesel trains began in 1934, one of the greatest train events happened on the Burlington line. The Pioneer Zephyr traveled 1,000 miles from Denver to Chicago for the Chicago World's Fair. It broke the record for how far and how fast it traveled. With speeds of 112.5 miles an hour, the Pioneer Zephyr did the dawn to dusk dash on May 26, 1934, making it from Denver to Chicago in less than a day. According to Wikipedia, instead of going to Union Station, it went right to the World's Fair by the lakefront, where 2 million people got to see the Pioneer Zephyr for themselves. After the World's Fair ended, the Pioneer Zephyr, also known as the Silver Streak, went into regular passenger service for the next 26 years. The Pioneer Zephyr made its last run from Lincoln, Nebraska to Chicago Union Station in 1960 and was donated to Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry, where you can still see it today. In 1950, the Burlington got double-decker cars which were manufactured by Budd in Pennsylvania. These cars were the first of its kind of a double-decker passenger car. Soon after, in 1958, the Chicago Northwestern revealed their double-decker Pullman cars, which meant the cab could lead the train backwards to the city. These cars were used until 2005. By 1953, all the trains became diesel-powered. The Burlington merged with Northern Pacific, Great Northern, Pacific Coast Railroad to form Burlington Northern in 1970. In 1976, to honor the bicentennial of the United States, a steam engine called Southern Pacific 4449 came to the train lines, painted in patriotic colors of red, white, and blue. In 1992, Metra officially took over the Burlington Northern, and they had to update the line, retire the old locomotives, and invest in the new engine called the F40 PHM locomotives. In 1995, the Burlington Northern merged with the Santa Fe Railroad to form the BNSF Railroad we all know today.
And today, many people purchase homes here because of its proximity to downtown Chicago and the easy commute on Burlington Northern and Santa Fe.
The BNSF Railroad helped communities such as Riverside and Aurora to grow over the years. Today, there is 38 miles of track between 26 stops in the western suburbs. People not only just use it to go to work or school, but also for special events and holidays when there are crowds coming into Chicago. In the future, they want to expand the line all the way out to Sandwich, Illinois. That way, people who live west of Aurora don't have to go to Aurora to hop on the train to go to Chicago.
But in coming years, the BNSF hopefully will extend all the way down to Plano. They think it will extend into Montgomery, possibly Oswego, and down Yorkville, and Plano. That's really the future they're looking at. I know, Metra.